Imagine looking back from, say, the year 2042, a time when all those big promises about tech progress maybe took an unexpected turn.
Hmm.
But then, right in the middle of those challenges, maybe a path opens up for some radical improvement. That's exactly what we're diving into today.
Right. We're looking at various reports, future projections, to explore two pretty contrasting scenarios.
Exactly. First, a look back at how things could have gotten quite, let's say, difficult by 2042.
And,
And then we explore a potential positive shift, maybe driven by highly advanced AI.
okay, so the mission for this deep dive.
It's really to understand how tech disruption, demographic shifts, changing ideas about work, how all that could have led to a tricky situation.
And then how an advanced AI might, hypothetically, have offered a way out, or at least a path toward something better.
Precisely. We know you're here because you want to get your head around complex topics thoroughly, but, efficiently. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so looking at the sources, what really jumps out early on is the sheer speed of change they predicted, starting around 2025.
Uh-huh.
That's when generative AI really started to take off widely. AI systems creating text, images, getting more sophisticated all the time.
Yeah, that felt like it happened fast.
And just 5 years later, around 2030, projections suggested that up to 30% of global work hours could already be automated.
30%. Wow.
Yeah, especially hitting office work, services, logistics. It's a massive change in a really short time frame.
Absolutely. And then, picture this. From 2028 onwards, humanoid robots apparently started hitting the market.
Right, and the costs came down fast,
Exactly. The sources say under $15,000 by 2035.
which suddenly makes them viable for lots of businesses, doesn't it? For production, maybe even care tasks.
It does. And it raises that fundamental question. What did that actually do to the people whose jobs were suddenly being done by machines? Was it just about efficiency, or were there deeper societal consequences?
Well, if you layer the international demographic changes on top of that,
Yeah.
the picture gets even more complex.
How so?
The number of people over 65. Our sources suggest it was set to double between 2021 and 2050, doubling to 1.6 billion.
That's staggering.
And at the same time, the median age in Europe and North America was climbing significantly, from around 40 in 2021 to over 46 by 2050.
Okay, so what does that mean in practical terms?
Fewer young people entering the workforce, right? When you have a growing older population needing support and services, those are two trends pulling in opposite directions. Creates a lot of tension.
Okay, let's break that down. On one hand, you've got tech potentially making jobs redundant, and on the other, an aging society with a shrinking pool of working-age people. It almost sounds like a shortage of skilled labor was inevitable.
That's exactly the point. Even back in 2025, the World Economic Forum was flagging these skills gaps as a major barrier to economic transformation.
Right.
So even though new jobs were created in areas like AI and robotics, our info suggests around 170 million.
Which sounds like a lot.
It is, but the problem was finding enough people with the right training to actually fill those jobs. Existing retraining programs, well, they apparently only met about 40% of the demand.
That sounds like a real catch-22. If jobs disappear but people don't have the skills for the new ones.
You get this skills trap, as it's called,
Yeah.
especially in regions that already lack the right education, training, infrastructure.
So those places could fall even further behind, basically, because they couldn't leverage the new technologies.
Absolutely. And what's particularly concerning is how these tech and demographic trends reportedly fed into those more dystopian social effects.
Like what specifically?
Well, the loss of middle-class jobs due to automation, the rise in insecure work, that precarization idea, unstable jobs without traditional security,
Yeah.
and the increase in mental health issues. It kind of follows, doesn't it, if social safety nets aren't adapted quickly enough?
It does, and it gets even more unsettling when you read about some of the described government responses. Surveillance using networked robots, AI cameras, all supposedly for public safety.
Yeah, that definitely echoes some darker sci-fi visions,
Yeah.
where freedom gets traded for perceived security.
And if we bring in the changing work attitudes of younger generations, it gets even more tangled.
Right. Generation Z, the digital natives. They entered the workforce with very different expectations. Flexibility, self-determination, meaningful work.
The classic 9 to 5 just didn't appeal as much anymore.
For many, no. That whole quiet quitting phenomenon wasn't just noise. People were often only willing to do the bare minimum unless the conditions were, well, ideal.
Which must have caused huge problems for traditional industries, right? High turnover, labor shortages.
Exactly. Some companies that couldn't adapt quickly enough to these changing demands, apparently really struggled, even faced bankruptcy.
So you can see how all these threads, tech disruption, demographics, the skills gap, changing work motivations, started weaving together.
Yeah, reinforcing each other. It created this kind of vicious cycle. Tech displacing jobs without enough viable alternatives, demographic pressure straining social systems,
Mm.
a mismatch between skills needed and skills available.
Growing social inequality between those benefiting from AI productivity and a precarious majority.
Right. And then that crisis in work motivation accelerating the decline of established industries. It all connects.
The picture our sources paint for 2042 is, well, pretty fragmented. Highly automated, yes, but with deep social divisions, a broken labor market, and governments struggling with control and redistribution.
It's a fairly bleak scenario, to be honest.
It is. But that's exactly where the second part of our deep dive kicks in. What if, shortly after this low point in 2042, a breakthrough in artificial superintelligence ASI could have triggered a positive turn?
Right. This is where the hypothetical scenario gets really fascinating. The idea of a benevolent ASI tackling the root problems of that dystopian world.
So how might it do that? What do the sources suggest?
We'll take global resource and energy optimization, for instance. An advanced AI could potentially manage a smart grid, connecting all energy sources, balancing supply and demand perfectly in real time.
Leading to energy abundance.
Potentially,
Yeah.
yes. Or at least vastly improved efficiency and sustainability.
That sounds like a game changer for so many current challenges. And what about the circular economy stuff?
Yeah, AI-controlled recycling robots could optimize material loops to the point where waste is virtually eliminated. Resource scarcity might just cease to be a major issue.
It's a very optimistic vision, but you can see the logic given the potential capabilities.
It is optimistic, but it's grounded in the potential power of such an intelligence.
Okay, what about the big human challenges like disease?
Huge potential there, too, according to these projections. An ASI could develop truly personalized therapies based on individual genomics, proteomics, environmental data.
Making diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, autoimmune disorders much more treatable, or even curable.
That's the idea. And think about global pandemic response. AI enabling rapid early detection, computer-aided vaccine development literally within days.
Those would be medical breakthroughs on a scale that's hard to even comprehend. But what about the social inequalities we talked about from the 2042 scenario?
This is where concepts like a dynamic universal basic income come in. Imagine a UBI, automatically adjusted by the ASI based on cost of living, productivity, maybe even environmental factors.
A safety net that actually adapts.
Exactly. Designed to leave no one behind while still encouraging innovation. And in education, personalized lifelong learning paths tailored by AI to individual interests and abilities. That could finally bridge that skills gap we discussed.
That would be a massive leap from the skills trap scenario. But can AI really play a positive role in something as complex as governance?
The idea of deliberative AI democracy is really intriguing here. An ASI could potentially moderate global citizen assemblies, simulate policy outcomes way more accurately than we can now, and even propose neutral compromise solutions.
Reducing corruption, increasing trust in institutions.
That's the hope. And similarly, AI could make legal systems more transparent and accessible, helping people understand laws and rights more easily.
It sounds almost utopian. What about the massive environmental challenges like climate change?
Again, ASI is envisioned as a key player. Think automated drone and robot swarms carrying out large-scale ecological restoration reforestation, rebuilding coral reefs, all guided and monitored by the AI.
And tackling CO2.
Deploying optimized carbon-negative technologies, reactors, mineralization plants, efficiently absorbing gigatons of CO2 to stabilize the climate, coordinated on a global scale in a way that's currently impossible.
Wow. Okay, finally, what about the more human aspects? Culture, creativity, finding meaning in it all.
Interestingly, the sources see a positive role for ASI there too, collaborating with artists to create entirely new forms of expression, maybe democratizing creativity, and perhaps even facilitating deeper ethical reflection, helping humanity grapple with big questions about the meaning of life, morality, how we coexist with such powerful intelligence.
It really is striking to contrast these two potential futures, the difficult reality of 2042, evolving from current trends.
And then this hopeful pivot, enabled by a benevolent ASI.
The key takeaways seem clear, just how interconnected technological, demographic, and social trends really are.
Definitely. And the sheer potential for advanced AI to address those challenges in truly radical ways, for better or potentially for worse, depending on how it's managed.
Which brings us to the crucial point, doesn't it?
Yeah, what makes these hypothetical scenarios particularly thought-provoking is digging into the preconditions. What would actually need to happen for such a positive ASI outcome to emerge?
Right. How do you ensure an ASI is truly benevolent and acts in humanity's best interest without creating whole new sets of problems?
It's that incredibly delicate balance, isn't it? Between embracing rapid technological progress and safeguarding human agency, human values, human control.
Absolutely critical point and definitely something worth pondering further. Hopefully, this deep dive has given you a quick but solid insight into these complex future scenarios.
And maybe spark some more curiosity about where things might be heading.